Honorée Corder, Why You Must Write a Book. Subtitled, Become a Book Baby. Episode 8 on All Mavens Branded Podcast. How do you think about, or even do you think about branding in terms of during the process? Is there a component to that?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, publishing professionally is one piece of the branding process. A lot of professionals will say, well, I need to become an author. And then this guy over here says, outline your book in a weekend, write it and publish it in 30 days on Amazon. Don't worry about a cover. Don't worry about editing. Nobody really cares about that. They care. And they care in the same way that they wonder if you are professional. Yeah. Your book is you in absentia. It's like, I don't have time to go to that meeting. I'm going to send my book, and my book is going to do all the talking. Except if your book's cover looks awful, no one's going to open it. And if it looks awful and they open it anyway, and you can't read it.
So they give me their book, and why they're getting it from the trunk, I'm not sure, except for obviously they're carrying it around a lot of books to give away.
That's marketing.
But
so
anyway,
that's good. I advise that. However,
yeah, that's good. Yeah, I want to hear the however. That's why we're talking. Yes.
The however is if you wrote your book and published it in 30 days and you ordered print on demand from Amazon, which is what I advise. I advise that you do print on demand using Amazon after you have carefully crafted your book, written your book, edited your book, professionally published your book, and then printed your book, as opposed to going from A to X.
So professionally published, like with a publisher or with you.
I can talk through that because there are the four cornerstones of a professionally published book.
I'm John Beethan, your host of Branded, the podcast brought to you by the crazies at All Maven. And today I'm talking with Honorée Corder. Honorée is a badass, and we really like badasses. And in this episode, you're going to discover the four cornerstones of a professionally published book: editing and proofreading, cover design, back cover, and the book description, and finally, the interior design. Honorée helps her clients get behind the velvet rope, as she likes to say. That's the place that's comfortable and the snacks are better. And cutting to the chase, get your free copy of her book, You Must Write a Book, by visiting honoreecorder.com. And that's spelled HONOREECORDER. I now bring you Honorée Corder. So good afternoon, Honorée Corder. How are you?
Fantastic.
That's good. I actually expect nothing less. We've had a few phone calls, and we've met each other on Mary Kravitz live Zoom calls, which she's been amazing, huh?
She is delightful. She's delightful,
really nice.
And she knows her stuff. I dig her a lot.
So we are going to answer a question today for people that basically is, the question is, why must you write a book?
All right.
So
I might know.
I hope you do.
I might know.
That's good. But for everybody out there, why don't you just talk a little bit about yourself? And I prefer to let people introduce themselves.
Sure. So my background is in sales, professional development, business coaching, executive coaching, corporate training, speaking, those sorts of things. And I did all of those things before I was advised to write a book. And I did not realize that writing the book could take every single thing that I was doing and wanted to do to the next level. So
what I hear from most people is I had no idea how much work it was.
Well, also that. So I have transitioned to almost solely helping professionals and entrepreneurs and aspiring authors to become authors and to monetize their knowledge, not only through a book, but also then repurposing the content of their book and expanding on their knowledge and education and expertise into other streams of income.
Yeah. Nicely said.
Thank you.
Yeah. So where do you think we should go with this conversation today? Because I'm less interested in the interview than more interested in the conversation. But
Sure.
but certainly, I really do want to ask the question why somebody actually would want a book.
Well, someone would want a book because they know they have something to share that could help someone to either avoid a problem or a challenge or capitalize on an opportunity. I say and have said even today in another conversation, I did not have a me to guide me, and I had a number of scrapes and bruises and one fire to to symbolize the missteps I made along the way. And if I had had a guide, I would have done better faster. And a lot of people feel that if they would have had a guide, they would have done better faster.
Oh, sure.
And right. And so that is one reason to have a book, is to take all of the goodness that you have been through and have discovered and the distinctions you've made and the aha moments and put them into a format that someone could consume in an hour or a few hours and change their life for the better. Mm-hmm. So there's the I'm going to make a difference reason. Mm-hmm. There is the you separate yourself from the other people who say I'm the best at this, and yet every person who is actually the best at something has a book, right? Every expert has one thing in common, and it is that they do have a book. Mm-hmm. And then there are the financial benefits to being an author, not just solely from selling books, but also because you are an expert and because you are a published author, you are able to charge more for what it is you're doing right now. You already have the knowledge and expertise. Having a book to hand out legitimately makes you stand out, also allows you to charge more for what you do. Mm-hmm. And that's not ever bad either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I've done 2 audiobooks for authors.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, that was fun. It was a lot of work, but in one particular case, the author had sold about 10,000 books on Amazon. And
that's solid.
Yeah, surprisingly, about 6 weeks after we released the audiobook, he called me one day and he basically said because of the sales of the audiobook too, that he had recouped his investment, which was really, really nice.
Yep.
But a written book is really a completely different experience, is what I find. Because,
from the author perspective or from the reader perspective, or both?
From the reader perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's very intimate. So one thing I'm getting from you is it really kind of takes, like I believe everybody needs a coach, and it's no different with somebody that's writing a book.
Oh gosh, yes. I have from the coach perspective, from the coaching perspective, it is such a joy to work with someone, no matter who they are. But I get a particular level of joy of working with someone who has done a book before and they have experienced anybody else's process or their own, trying to figure it out. And as I just take their hand and I guide them to behind the velvet rope and say, here, have a seat, get comfortable. Here's a snack, here's a beverage. Let me make this easy for you. Let me help you to remove the pain and suffering. And let's just have a really good time putting what you know into the written word format to share with readers.
I like what you said, behind the velvet rope.
Well, if you have, as I have, traveled some miles and gotten some years under your belt, there is a certain satisfaction with being able to afford the finer things in life. And I have been the person who has stood in line for hours and hours and hours to sit in the cheap seats.
Yeah.
And then I have been backstage with no waiting. And I will tell you that the no waiting, where they just take you back there and then they have really good snacks, is the best place. And that is the experience I try to provide for people, because already the I want to write a book goal feels huge. I want to do it. I want to, build a house from scratch. I want to train for a triathlon. All of those things are seemingly insurmountable, long and involved and painful and frustrating. And I'm not saying that it's all puppies and rainbows. However, I have gone ahead and made all of the mistakes so that you don't have to.
Well, that's what I say in my podcasting business, the same thing. Yeah. I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to.
Yeah. Let me just take you by the hand and walk you through. It's going to be really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice. So in separating yourself from other people that may be doing the same thing, I think you've already indicated a few things that you do differently, but it's really just, take somebody by the hand through the whole process. But one question I was thinking about is, what if you have somebody that wants to write a book, but quite frankly, they can't write?
Problem solved. So I have an option or two or three for that. I have ghostwriters who can pull that information out of them. Alternatively, there are times when well, I don't like to say people can't write, but some people have an easier time with sentence construction and content flow, right? It's more intuitive to some people than others. And some people are under the impression that they are better than they are because they are success at something else. So they just assume that their proficiencies translate. And so I would never call that out. And also there are people, content editors, developmental editors, that can take the words that have been written and turn it into something that's pleasurable for the reader.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know the spoken word is different than the written word.
Oh, yes.
So it's like some people I know think they can record their speaking engagement because they're wildly successful doing that.
Sure.
Record it and have it transcribed and they have a book.
Of course. Yes. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. But you and I both know that's not really going to work.
It won't work for a finished product. However, it will get you closer. A lot of authors use dictation to get the initial concept, the initial ideas out, and then engage a team. I mean, it is every book that you read that is wonderful has had many eyes and lots of skilled folks on it, for sure.
Yeah. So let's go a little bit in depth of the services,
Oh, sure.
Because I got to tell you, I'm sitting here having this conversation with you, and we've had conversations before, but I'm going, maybe I need to write a book.
You need to write a book. Well, I think you should write a book about why everyone should have a podcast.
Yes.
If nothing else, a booklet, so I can talk maybe about the different levels of service that I offer and what each of those involve. Sure. Well, thank you for asking. I appreciate that. I originally wrote a book called You Must Write a Book. Amazon reached out to me and said, we'd love for you to come to New York and talk to the media at a breakfast about why everyone should write and publish a book, and specifically using our platform, because you've done that and you've done that successfully. And at the time, my most recent book was not at all related to writing or writing a book. And I said, do I have enough time, and would it be of interest if I wrote a book about why everyone should write and publish a book? And they said, yes, please do that. None of the other authors that we have invited have thought to do that. Please do that. And I wrote the book you see over my shoulder, You Must Write a Book, and published that book. And they were very generous and got behind that book. And that book has done very well. And sometimes hindsight provides 20/20 where foresight provided nothing. So what I didn't see coming were the numbers of people who would reach out to me and say, I have questions. I'm not sure if you could provide a more information about this particular part of the process or what have you. I also wasn't prepared for the number of people who called me and said, you clearly know how to do this, and I have more money than time, And so here is my American Express card. Please make me an author. And so out of that, I've developed 3 different levels of engagement with someone. I have a course which was titled the You Must Write a Book live coaching course, except that it wasn't named correctly, if that makes sense. So it is now called Publishing Ph.D. The person who takes that course is someone who wants to understand the self-publishing process from a professional perspective and wants to write, publish, launch, and market their books and turn them into multiple income streams. And I said books because generally speaking, the people who take the course want to have more than one book and they want to have more than one income stream. So they're coming to learn the method so that they can not only do it one time, but it's duplicable so they can do it again. Then I have 2 different levels of custom auto-magically becoming an author. One of those is called the Better Business Book, which is a short 15,000 word book that I work with a ghostwriter to produce for someone. And it's less than 20 hours on their part, including the interviews, all of the approval processes. And they pay us and we turn them into an author. And the book's about 100 pages, which incidentally was the size of my first book. My first book was very short. And I sold 11,000 copies of that book in 3 weeks and raised my fees by 150% and then 200% and then 300%. And also then have sold over 100,000 copies of that one book. And at the 10-year mark, did a 10th anniversary edition. The book is Tall Order. Master Strategies for Doubling Your Income and Your Success in Half the Time. So I'm a big fan of the shorter book that checks all the boxes. Is it a book? Yes. Does that make you an author? Yes. Do I get to raise my fees? Yes. Again. So some people want to be an author and they want to be an author quickly, and this is a 6-month option. So then there is the full-size business book option. Same process, just a longer time frame, much bigger book. So a full-size nonfiction business book, memoir, something of that nature, 70 or 80,000 words, or maybe even more. And that takes about a year or more. The Better Business Book is 6 months or less. And I get a lot of people who reach out and say, oh gosh, I have a TEDx talk now, or I have a TED talk in 6 months. Is it too late for me to write and publish my book? And I say, well, no, it's never too late. I can guide you through that process 100%. However, if you'd like to delegate that, I'm happy to quarterback that process.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. I don't know if you know who he is.
Of course.
Yeah, I love Simon to death. And I read his book quite a few years ago. Start with Why. And he did a TED talk, and he's done a ton of stuff since. But he did a TED talk that I think is number 3 in terms of the most popular, and I think probably in terms of book sales,
right up there.
It's like he says he doesn't really pay much attention to the book sales. He says he's just more interested in really getting his core brand and message out there, and which is another thing I wanted to talk about in terms of branding. So, how do you think about, or even do you think about branding in terms of during the process? Is there a component to that?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, publishing professionally is one piece of the branding process. A lot of professionals will say, well, I need to become an author. And then this guy over here says, outline your book in a weekend, write it and publish it in 30 days on Amazon. Don't worry about a cover. Don't worry about editing. Nobody really cares about that. They care. And they care in the same way that they wonder if you are professional. Yeah. Your book is you in absentia. It's like, I don't have time to go to that meeting. I'm going to send my book, and my book is going to do all the talking. Except if your book's cover looks awful, no one's going to open it. And if it looks awful and they open it anyway, and you can't read it. I once had a gentleman give me his book at a Christmas party. And it was a fiction book. And he said, I wrote this story and the story is wonderful and people who read it love this book. And if you'd please just read it and give me some pointers. And I said, okay, sure. I couldn't read past the third page. It had not been edited. And so there were so many mistakes, which there's no fault in that. Any book is going to have mistakes if it is unedited.
Well, I've had several situations where people have just like, hey, give me a second, let me go to my trunk of my car and I'll give you my book. So that they give me their book, and why they're getting it from the trunk, I'm not sure, except for obviously they're carrying it around.
Yes, that's good. That's marketing. But so anyway, that's good. I advise that. However,
yeah, that's good. yeah, I want to hear the however. That's why we're talking. Yes.
The however is if you wrote your book and published it in 30 days and you ordered print on demand from Amazon, which is what I advise. I advise that you do print on demand using Amazon after you have carefully crafted your book, written your book, edited your book, professionally published your book, and then printed your book, as opposed to going from A to X.
So professionally published, like with a publisher.
I can talk through that because there are the four cornerstones of a professionally published book. So I'm going to put two of them together: editing and proofreading. That takes your raw manuscript, your raw ideas, and puts it through the professional editing process. When I engage an editor, all of them, every single one, cut their teeth in traditional publishing. They all use a manual of style. Most of them grew up in one of the big publishing houses. And so they've edited hundreds and hundreds of books, and they know exactly what they're doing. But guess what? Traditional publishing has downsized as indie publishing has grown. And there are a lot of really wonderful people that are available for contract. Now you're going to pay for their skills. That's okay, because then your book's going to be awesome. Yes.
Makes a huge difference. Yeah, boy, this is like my wheels are turning. My wheels are turning because there's somebody I met actually in New Mexico. I spent most of my adult life up in Santa Fe. And somehow, I know, through another business association, I became aware of David Herndon, who is a writer for New Mexico Magazine, but his real thing is travel. And he's having to completely redo himself because of magazines seem to be going away.
Well, they're going digital, right? So if you don't have all of the pieces in place, it won't be successful, right? Because it's expensive to print. For color printing is very expensive. Mailing is very expensive. So how can I get my magazine in the hands of readers in a way that is helpful? And I'm a Rotarian forever, and every month I get my Rotarian magazine, and they're like, "Would you like this in digital format? Would you please take this in digital format so we can stop printing it and sending it to you?" Which would make me happy. Let me close the loop though on the editing piece. So generally speaking, I suggest at least one, maybe two editing pass after I have taught my authors how to go through the manuscript several times so that they can send an almost clean manuscript to an editor. Now let me talk about what almost clean means. I prepare them for the fact that they are going to revisit their 10th grade English class when they get their manuscript back from an editor. When I've written 53 books, and it was the 53rd book that I sent to my editor, and she said, "Oh, I had to do less editing on your book. You've really grown as a writer since the last time I edited your book. And I didn't have to charge you as much." Still, John, look like a crime scene when I got it back. So I will write it. I will review it. I will read it out loud. I will put it through a program like Grammarly. And it still comes back from an editor looking like a crime scene. Yeah. And so a lot of professionals who are used to getting, the red A+ circled in red on the upper right-hand corner of their paper, when you get a manuscript back from an editor, it looks like you failed because there are so many marks. The expectation is always it's going to come back looking like a crime scene, and this is not an indictment on your character, your qualities, your competency, none of those things. It just means that your writing could be improved, number one. And number two, the read, which this is the most important part, the read for the reader is pleasurable. And so I make the difference between if you took a low riding car and you went fast in the Walmart parking lot where there are speed bumps, you're boom, 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 and it's miserable. It's going to hurt.
It's going to hurt.
That's what your manuscript feels like, reads like, is experienced like if your manuscript is unedited. Conversely, throw yourself in an Aston Martin and go on the Autobahn 140 miles an hour. That's what the read is like when it's been edited properly. So depending upon your level of skill and comfort with being a writer, how much you write, those sorts of things, you will either need one or two editing passes. Then once your editor's gone all the way through it once or twice and you've gone through it again, then you will want to engage a proofreader. And a proofreader just cleans it up and makes it perfect. Or as perfect as it can possibly be. There are always...
So is that that's like a finished carpenter?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. This is fascinating, I got to tell you, because as a podcaster and as an editor, audio editor, I go through a very similar process, which is just clean it up, and sometimes more than once. So it's like I've heard of, it's like I hear ticks,
correct.
I hear ums, I hear bumps.
And an editor's job and a proofreader's job is to take those out so that the reader is experiencing a clean read and they want to then process through those pages. And ultimately, here's the win for the author. At the end, the reader says, "Well, I really like that author. I want to engage them in some way. I want to get to know them better. They just proved to me with their sense of humor or their seriousness, their knowledge, their expertise, their education, and by giving me what I could drink up, I want to go to the next level. Let me engage with you." And if you don't, and we're just at cornerstone number one, if you don't do that, then you've lost. And it could have been a really great, it could have been lost.
You know what? I totally get it. I teach people you got to edit, and I this is going to be released on Branded Podcast. Okay. Yeah, no, it's great. And, but people can go there. And if you listen to, I don't remember what episode it's with Jenny Jackson. So Jenny Jackson has a business called Develop Your Team, and she works with teams, and she's wonderful. And we did the recording, and I would ask her a question, we'd be talking, and there would be these very long pauses. Now, to keep some of them in is okay because it gives people a little bit of a sense that there's some real thought behind this.
However.
But not 30 seconds. That's probably too much. So I cleaned it up, and when the podcast was released, she came back to me and said, "Oh my God, you made me sound
wonderful."
So good.
It's exactly the same thing, and it is your bench of people. So then the next thing is the cover design. So that comes just afterwards. One of the 4 cornerstones. I just start with editing and proofreading because I really want people to understand that there's nothing wrong with them for needing it. As a matter of fact, it's just a matter of course. So editing and proofreading is number 1.
Okay.
Cover design is number 2.
And that includes the back cover too?
So it's all the visuals.
It's all the visuals.
So when I have my designer do a cover suite, and this is part of what I teach people, is they think, they just need a cover. Well, actually, you need 5 covers. There's the front cover for your ebook. There's the full cover for your paperback book. There's the square cover for your audio book and your social media images.
Yes.
There is a full cover if you decide to do a hardcover version of your book. And then professionally published books have an interior black and white image cover that goes right inside. So cover of the book, open it up, and it's a black and white mirror image. A lot of self-published books don't have that. You open it up and it has either nothing on that front page or it just has the title in Times New Roman. Right? They just... Times New Roman.
Times New Roman.
So the interior file needs to be designed in InDesign by a designer. So interior design is next, but let's finish the cover. The cover suite actually needs to be created so that you can fulfill all of the versions that you want to have. And there are specific ways to have your cover designed. And there is some homework. There's a lot of homework that I give my clients. And I'll just give one to you. One piece of the process is going to the neighborhood where your book will live in the bookstore. And to look at the books that have been there a long time, that are sustainable bestsellers, not the books that have been a bestseller for 5 seconds in their category at Amazon, but legitimate, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich kind of, right? Or 2 or 3 years, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Those books have a look and a feel. There are fonts that work. There are color themes that work. Those things all contribute to whether a book is successful. Everything. So I have them research. If you do a nonfiction personal development book, chances are you're going to encounter red, black, and white. Right? And there are variables that go along with that. So I send them to the neighborhood where their book is going to live and to do some research. So the cover is,
That's awesome. That's, well, I get it. And I didn't intend me to talk too much about podcasting, but the album artwork on podcasting is really,
and it has to look good, this tiny.
And it's
because someone's going to look at it. I'm going to go to the podcast app on my phone and I'm going to look for the logo. And if I can't read the title, and it's exactly the same, if you look at Amazon or iBooks on your phone, if you can't see that little tiny image clearly enough to read the title, you're lost. You've already lost me. And this could have been the beginning of a beautiful friendship, and I've moved on. If it looks muddy or not clear or all the things.
Well, it's also people. Yeah, and people are going to be comparing, just like they would in a bookstore, in a particular section. If they're doing a podcast, they're searching a podcast for law or self-development, they're going to see these square album artworks, and one is going to pop out to them. That's probably the one they're going to tap on.
Exactly
so in a bookstore, it's got to. In a bookstore, it'd be the same thing. In a section, there's going to be, if it's front-facing, actually the design of the spine.
The design of the spine is important, and on the spine, I talk about title, author name, publishing company, and logo. So that's part of what I have my clients do, is to form a publishing company, even if it's a DBA, and to have a logo design so that on their spine, they look exactly like their neighbors from HarperCollins and Simon & Schuster. Absolutely.
Really?
Well, I don't want someone to be dismissed because they don't fit in with the big kids. They don't look like they're a cool kid.
Right.
And I ultimately know how to optimize a book in ways that those companies don't bother to do. They either don't know or they don't care. So I add in the extras for my clients and for the participants in my course that the big publishers don't do, because they are not concerned about the author's relationship with the reader. They are concerned about the publishing company's relationship with the reader, whereas I'm concerned about the relationship between reader and author. So there are lots of things that authors can do to make sure that the book is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
That is so well said, Honoree. This is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I never told you, but when I moved, I lived on Orcas Island for a long time off the coast of Seattle, and moved originally from Northwest and Portland and all that, and moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And 3 months after being there in 2005, I was hired by a publishing company, Bear and Company Publishers.
I don't think I've heard of that.
So they were bought by Llewellyn Publishers.
Okay, sure.
And I mentioned it because I was doing IT work there and business management. But boy, I ended up marrying the graphic designer.
Excellent.
And I was just best friends with the owner and editor. And it actually, for what it's worth, Bear was purchased by Jerry and Barbara Clow, who were Jerry's father. Actually started Rand.
Only Rand McNally.
So
Just a little company. We
Yeah,
had it
just
for
a little
yes.
publishing company. Yeah. So I mean, I learned a lot about aspects of the publishing industry, but I'm getting so much from you right now. This is fascinating. You got
Oh
me.
gosh,
I mean,
that's
I'm getting
awesome.
chills.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
it's like
So do you want me
incredible.
to finish the 4 cornerstones?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we get them with the cover design, we're gonna
Yeah.
convert with the copy, the back cover copy, the sales copy. So sales copy, back cover copy,
Got it.
and book description, all the same thing. Slightly different depending on where you're using it. So on the back cover, we're going to describe the book. We're going to share who's read the book and endorse the book. We're going to talk a little bit about the author, but maybe a picture of the author.
Maybe a picture of the
yeah,
author
if they're cute,
sometime?
for sure. Throw them up on the back. You never know.
Well,
You'd
my
be on the
picture would
front
be on the
cover.
back
Come
of my
on,
book.
John. Put on the front with a microphone. But the cover gets you to look at the front. It causes you to flip over and read the back. And the back, the description, is what causes someone to take the book to the front and buy it, or to scroll up and buy now. It actually converts at a higher rate than the cover. The cover, the cover says, come here. The copy says, come on, let's do this thing. So the copy is one of the 4 cornerstones of a professionally published book, and it has to be written by a copywriter, by someone who understands sales copy. I will always hear from the author, this doesn't sound like me. I like everything you've done, H or HC, depending on what they go, H or HC. I love everything you've done, HC, but this does not sound like me. And I say, it's not supposed to sound like you. It's supposed to sell the book. That's it. So it's not written by you. It's written by a copywriter who understands what the book is about, because I've given them all the information they need to write the copy.
Got it. So what about the index? I mean, it used to be, I would look at the index.
I don't generally include indexes unless the book is highly scientific or there are lots of references. If it's a medical book, then we're...
Table of contents?
Oh yes, always table of contents, for sure.
Do people, you think people look at that as a part of when they go to...
I looked at it.
Yeah,
I actually looked at a table of contents. I'm getting ready to move. So I'm really going through all of my unread books, my TBR pile. And I pulled out a book and I read the table of contents and I thought, I'm really interested in this book. The table of contents were much better than the actual contents of the book. So the book went
funny.
from the TBR pile to the bedside table to the donate pile within an hour. Because there are so many books to read, I'm not going to...
I was going to say you're probably moving because you're having to move into a bigger house because you have too many books in the house, right?
Sort of. It's an interesting story, but no, I'm actually I get books all the time. People read my book and they write a book and then they send it to me. And I, of course, consider that a book baby. So I like to at least look at all my book babies and read.
A book?
Yeah.
Hang on.
They're my book babies. Yeah. They're the babies that came from my book. So...
Well, I have to write this down. We're going to subtitle this podcast, Become a Book Baby.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So then the last one is the interior design.
Yeah.
And I really like the interior design and the cover design to go together like wine and cheese or like a really beautiful outfit. It doesn't match, it goes. A great designer is going to custom design the interior of your book and give it some fine, wonderful touches that will distinguish your book and make it look next level professionally published. So editing and proofreading, cover design, interior design, and copywriting, those are the 4 cornerstones of a professionally published book. And when you do those things well, the book then represents you very well when you aren't with the book. And it actually does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. I get an email almost every day, if not twice a day, from someone who has said, I read your book. I'd like to talk to you more about maybe working with you in one way or another. So while I'm, hanging out in quarantine, doing my Netflix binging, my book is out there working.
Yeah.
She is working.
Yeah, and you're getting paid. You're getting paid
And
while
I'm
you
getting
sleep.
paid while I sleep. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, once a book's been published and stuff, a lot of publishing companies will set up book tours and stuff. Is that actually something you do?
I actually talk about how to, the two phases of marketing, which phase one is from the moment you have a book idea until about 30 days after the book has been released. That's phase one. Phase two is 30 days after your book has been released until you die. Those are the two phases of marketing, right?
It's not if you die, it's when you die?
Yes.
Okay, but your book
can live on, but my marketing will end when I die. I'm not sure what my grandchildren will be doing or my great-grandchildren. They'll still be like, thank God Grandma wrote that book because we're still making money.
Yeah.
But I also talk about marketing the book, which is marketing to sell books, and then there's marketing with the book and what the difference is, right? One of the things that I talk about in You Must Write a Book, which I hope it's okay for me to say, edit out if not, that on the front page of my website, honoreecorder.com, you can get a free copy of You Must Write a Book, a free digital copy. So honoreecorder.com is right on the front cover, right on the front page of the website. Get a free copy of You Must Write a Book. In that book, I talk about how the ROI, and I can share a quick story on this too, the ROI of doing a book tour is like negative 2 million%. So I have a very good friend of mine. She is an epic science fiction writer. So she writes 120, 150 page books. If you're an epic science fiction lover, it's Kelkade, Kelkade. She is a big deal. So she self-published, and her first series did so well that Tor, which is the epic publisher for that genre, came and threw a bucket of money at her, like a dump truck of money at her to publish. So part of being a traditionally published author, John, is they carry you around on a pillow. They fly you places. She's like, Honorée, you would love this. They carried me around on a pillow. She's like, I know you would totally love that. So she publishes her new series and they fly her to these 3 different cities. And so she gets back from her tour and I said, how did it go? And she said, it was awful. She said, in one place, I go to the city, I have to fly there. I'm away from my daughter. I get there. I go to the hotel. I've got to stay in a hotel. I don't sleep well. And it's a very nice hotel. The food is fine. The room is great. However, it's not my bed. I go to the bookstore. They've been touting it for months. Guess how many people show up? And I was like, I don't know, 100, 200. She said 12 people. 12 people came.
Oh my gosh.
When you think about the fact that the number on the back of the book, the price, $27.95, and you had 12 people show up, and they paid for first class airfare, 5-star hotel, dining. It makes 0 sense whatsoever for them to have spent that money. And guess who ultimately paid for it?
Well, she did out of her royalties, right?
Yes.
See, I know a little bit about the industry.
Yes.
So, I mean, you could carry that on to the music industry.
My husband's in the music business. Exactly the same thing. We're going to carry you around on a pillow, but guess what? You paid for the pillow. Yeah, I'll stay home and pick my own pillow. Thank you very much. So I don't actually believe that unless it's in your hometown or you happen to be somewhere, that it really makes a lot of sense to do the in-person things. Now, let's talk about this situation that we've got right here. I'm at home on my own pillow. You're at home with your own pillow. You've got your own snacks, the menu of your choosing. Neither one of us had to get on an airplane.
I also know where
the bathroom is. Fully stocked and ready to go. And here we are. And the return on this conversation, very high. I do recommend speaking engagements. And I do recommend podcast guesting. One of the things I do talk to my clients about doing is getting on podcasts and having really great information to share with the podcaster's audience, because rumor has it you all dig that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we do. Yeah, rumor has it we dig that. I like your language pattern. It's groovy too.
Yes.
It's very groovy and I dig it big.
Yes. So stay home, make an impact, make a podcast host happy, make a podcast listener happy. I did get an email, and this is not at all about me, right? It's about the listener, right? Like, how can they write and publish their book and sell lots of books? But I did get an email from someone who said, because I ask in my email sequence, if someone signs up for my bonuses of my book, which you get free bonuses. So you sign up, you're on my email list. We start this beautiful friendship that we're going to have. She did answer my question, which is, so how did you find me? Who do I have to thank for bringing us together? And she said, I heard you on this podcast, and then I spent my weekend listening to every podcast I could find of you. And I'm so glad that I
simply go to your app and search for your name.
Yes.
Yeah. So hang on. For those listening, one thing I want to tell everybody is what I want you to do before you go do this is get a microphone. I'm going to recommend it's a Samson, Samson Q2U. So it'll make a huge difference in terms of how you sound. Just saying.
All right.
Yeah. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I'd like to know who your favorite authors are.
I don't know.
Okay. Just who just came to mind? I said, who's your...
So I get asked this question. Someone will say, well, give me a few of your favorite books. And so I can rattle off a whole bunch. So Think and Grow Rich is by Napoleon Hill, but my favorite book by him is Law of Success, which I read once a year. Then we have Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. I would be remiss if I didn't mention The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and I'm his business partner in the book series. So I read the book, loved the book, and now we've created a whole series with different verticals like The Miracle Morning for Teachers or The Miracle Morning for Salespeople. I am a big fan of Maxwell Maltz, who wrote Psycho-Cybernetics, the person who owns that franchise now. I'm also a big fan of his. His name is Matt Fury, F-U-R-E-Y. So he has Psycho-Cybernetics with Matt Fury. So he's taken the original content and expanded on it, and it's amazing. Dan Kennedy had that in the middle. So it was Maxwell. Maxwell gave it to Dan, and Dan gave it to Matt. And so each one of those versions, I have them. I've read them and listened to them all several times. Nerd alert. I am a new fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza, who has Becoming Supernatural and several books. What am I listening to? I'm a big fan of The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale.
So I've read not all, but many of the books you've mentioned.
So there, I mean, my challenge is if I start listening to one book, I might forget a book I was in the middle of because. Okay,
and you said if I'm listening, so you're listening to Audible?
So I have, So okay, let's talk about this for a minute. This is my Kindle. This is my iPad.
And the video is not recorded, but wait, Kindle, iPad.
So there's my iBooks app on my iPad. My Kindle, which was a gift from Amazon, by the way. So I have about all the books that will fit on here. I like the Kindle in particular, not just because it was a gift from Amazon, but also because it doesn't have any other interactive. So I can read on my phone, but then if I get a text message or a phone call, it can interrupt. I know. I can curl up, right? People are just so invasive. They interrupt reading. When I get a book, I will very often get a book in Audible first because I have more time to listen while I'm walking my dog, doing dishes, folding laundry, those sorts of things. However, if I want to retain the information and go next level, I will get the paperback version to highlight.
It's the same thing
I have highlighters in every color because the first time it's yellow, the second time I go over with blue, then I have a different color green, then I have purple, I have pink, I have orange, right? I have a whole system. So books that I have read several times have several different highlighted things.
Honorée.
I know, I'm a nerd.
Honorée, you should write a book. You should write a book.
Well, I actually someone gave me my first nonfiction book idea in a while today. So I'm contemplating a new book idea, actually. Yep. That's
awesome. Where are you located physically? Which makes no difference for somebody that's going to work with you.
Nashville,
but where
Tennessee.
Are you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you actually get out to listen to music much?
I do. My husband's music business. So yes. So I went from standing in the line to sit in the nosebleed seats to getting to go backstage. It's It's a different experience.
I would like to have a separate conversation with you
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a music background.
I know. I heard you say that. Music business is a great, is a big fun time.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. And music just is. Music can make you feel a way in a moment.
Yes.
Music can make you feel any way you need to feel in that much time if it's the right song, which is quite a blessing. Yeah.
All right. So I'm looking at 5 minutes until the top of the hour, and you said you had to go. So I want to make sure that people can get a hold of you easily. I usually suggest we just send people to your website.
Sure.
Honoree Corder, and it's HONOREECORDER.com.
Yes. And or you could do John a solid too and take a snap of you listening to this on your phone and post it on Instagram and tag both of us. And I'm at Honoree on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. What is your handle, John?
Well, typically it's John Beethan.
Okay, then there you go.
But this will be a big shock to a lot of people, but I deleted my Facebook account.
Well, it's not a shock because Facebook is not a fun and friendly place to be right now. Are you still on Instagram?
At another handle yet to be released.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you'll have to tell me because I just took a snap.
Okay.
So I can tag you on Instagram.
Okay. You on Instagram. I'm working with a company called Relationship by Design, which is just in 60 years of self-development or whatever. It's just like one of my favorite things. So that handle is Relationship TRD.
TRD. Okay.
So that means relationship, the real deal.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because honestly, I value relationship probably more than anything except for maybe music.
Wow.
Yeah,
So if you can hug and listen to some John Denver, like you might explode.
I know. You're funny. We're going to have to do another episode on another one of my channels.
Okay.
I have a channel called what has my attention is the name of the podcast channel. So we can just not talk about books, but just talk about anything else. And then my last question for you is, what kind of a dog do you have?
I have a chocolate lab. Her name is Rogue, named by my husband. Rogue, the X-Men character.
Oh, yeah.
And she will be 2 on June the 26th. She is about as spoiled as a dog should be, which is that spoiled.
Does she ever get out in the water?
We have bought 30 acres just west of Nashville. So she will be spending every day probably in the water. Yes. Well, but she's a Labrador Retriever, so they love water. So
I know. That's why I asked.
She loves all the things.
I lost my dog Maggie, who is half Malamute and half Coyote.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She was 14 years. Sorry. Well, this was 2005.
My husband's dog, Black Lab, Maggie. And she died at 17. He had her.
Oh, that's a good long life for a dog.
And he was talking to a friend of ours last night who had lost his dog several years ago. And both of them, big, burly men, were in tears talking about their dogs that had passed away. Yeah. Yep. I totally get it. I get it now.
Well, stay on. I want to thank you for being here. Yeah. Once again, visit HonoreeCorder.com, or you can follow her on social media at Honoree.